I previously showcased a few private Android ROMs on this channel, but I must admit I quickly lost interest after I realized most of those ROMs ran on hardware that didn't quite fit my needs. But now I've been sent two phones from a company called Volla, one running their own Android ROM called Volla OS and one running Ubuntu Touch. So here's a video to talk about the phone itself, but also their Degoogled private Android ROM called Volla OS, which does a few interesting things on top of just removing the Google stuff. We'll make another video down the line about Ubuntu Touch specifically. So let's see how good or bad this phone is, the operating system it runs is, and let's also talk about our sponsor. This video is sponsored by TuxCare, and if you're a developer, chances are you might have used or you currently use Spring, OpenJDK, Log4j, AngularJS, Python, PHP, and plenty of other languages, libraries, and runtimes. And of course you have been confronted with the usual problem of these things going end of life. Fortunately, this doesn't have to be a headache anymore, as TuxCare offers endless lifecycle support for all of these and more. This means you don't have to rush to upgrade to a newer version, and you don't have to perform complex rewrites, refactors, or migrations. You can just stay on the versions you currently depend on and either stick with them for as long as you want, or you can plan your migration with as much time as you need. TuxCare will give you security patches for vulnerabilities with updates that they test extensively to make sure nothing breaks, and this in turn means you can stay compliant with your own obligations. As usual, the link is in the description. If you want to stop the migration headaches and the end-of-life problems, then all you have to do is click that link and take a look at what they have. Okay, on to the phone and OS, and right off the bat, this video is not sponsored by Volla. They just sent me the phones for review, they didn't pay me a cent, I have to send the phones back, I don't get to keep them, and they didn't get to see this video, its script, or whatever else about those phones before I publish them, because I know someone will say it in the comments at some point. So this is the Volla Phone Quintus. It's a 6.75 inches phone with a resolution of 1080 by 2400, a 120 Hz refresh rate, although their website says 120 GHz refresh rate, which might just be a little bit too high. It is an AMOLED panel with a punch-hole camera. Some people hate that, but I personally don't care at all. The display goes up to 650 nits or 980 nits on high brightness mode. It packs a MediaTek chip, a Dimensity 750, with 8 cores running at 2.6 GHz, and a Mali GPU. It also has 3 back cameras, one wide 50 megapixels, one ultra-wide 8 megapixels, and one 2 megapixel macro sensor. The front camera is 16 megapixels, the phone has 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gigs of storage, and it can have up to 2 SIM cards. It also supports 5G, it has a fingerprint sensor which is under the display, and of course it charges with USB-C. The only thing it lacks is a micro SD card slot, which kinda sucks. Now, it is a big boy, it's 200 grams, which is not the heaviest for a phone, but still pretty heavy. It is too tall for my personal tastes. I just cannot reach the top of the screen without moving my hands around, which is not comfortable and isn't safe. It also has those curved screen edges on the sides, which I personally always loved on Samsung phones that I used in the past, but I know some people really hate them, so that's going to not be something for everyone. Now, Volla offers that phone with either Ubuntu Touch or Volla OS, which is their own Android ROM, which is the version we'll talk about today. They also have other devices, the X23, which is a more mid-range smartphone, and the Volla Phone 22, which is their entry-level device. They also have a tablet. All of these devices have a micro SD card slot, apart from the Quintus, which is the one we're looking at today. So, let's talk about the ROM, Volla OS. What does it do exactly? Well, it is Android. It is an Android ROM, so it uses the same exact base as every single other Android ROM, but it is degoogled. They removed the Google Play services and all the things that call home to Google, and instead they enable you to install and enable micro G, or not enable it if you think you don't need it, although not using micro G will definitely make a lot of stuff harder on that phone, because a lot of Android apps depend on Google Play services, and micro G replaces that very well, completely anonymously. You also do not need a Google account on that phone, of course, and Volla doesn't offer to create a Volla account or something equivalent either. You decide which apps you want to use, where your stuff is stored. They're not grabbing any data from you. They're not trying to push their own ecosystem to replace Google's. So it is an Android base. It came with Android 14 on the Volla Phone Quintus that I use, but I did get an update at the end of July. It's still Android 14, but with some security patches in there. Their stuff seems to be fully open source with the kernels that they build for their phones and tablets, their own applications and tools, and their own launcher. Because yes, they do have their own launcher, which is very minimalistic and might not be for everyone. So by default, you don't open a home screen with app icons or even an app drawer. You open on a springboard, which is just a text field where you can ask the phone to do whatever you want. You can type a contact name to get options to call them. You can type anything and search the web or Wikipedia with that. You can type email addresses to open the email app and send them an email. You can create reminders or calendar events. You can add notes, whatever you want. It just acts as a shortcut to other apps, which will grab what you typed and pass it to said app. Basically, it's the search feature that you get on most other operating systems for phones, whether it's iOS or Android, but reformatted into the default interface you use. You can also use voice, although it was not that good at understanding me, but that might be because I was trying to talk to it in English, and that's not my first language, so maybe my French accent disrupted the thing. Now, it is not extremely innovative, it's just a search field, but formatted differently. But it is quite efficient as the default method of interacting, because instead of picking apps and hunting for the thing you want to do, you just type it and it offers shortcuts to do so. You can also enable 3 more plugins for that launcher, one that gives you Wikipedia article summaries. You type the article that you want to search, you hit the find on Wikipedia, and it gives you the summary right there instead of opening the Wikipedia page. You have another shortcut for inline calculators straight from the springboard, and you have one for weather reports, although that last one did not work properly for me. It just never opened a weather report. The launcher also gives you a quick menu, that orange dot in the bottom. You just touch it and you move your thumb up to see a lot of options. The dialer, the camera, the gallery, the agenda, the notes, the news, conversation threads, and also contacts. These are just quick shortcuts to specific default applications or to the notes feature that the launcher has. The news thing only opens stuff from 3 news sources, and I did not find a way to add more. I could only remove existing ones or disable them, so it was not very useful to me, unless I missed something, but I didn't find the option. The quick menu can be configured to remove the options you don't want in that little orange popover, and you can also add a bunch other shortcuts, including any app that you installed. It can be linked in that quick access menu. I really like this little orange dot. I think it's super practical. It's just much better than having a home screen with icons you need to pick. You can just place your thumb where it rests naturally, press up, and with muscle memory, you always go to the right place if you memorized it and used it enough. I think it's really convenient and practical. Now, from the springboard, if you swipe to the right, you get the list of installed apps, basically the app drawer from Android, all minimalistic in grayscale, with the most used applications being visible and a More Apps button for the rest. You can configure that to put the app icons in color and also not have that More Apps button and just have a normal apps list. All installed apps appear here, no matter the source you installed them from. Another swipe to the right from that app drawer opens the launcher settings with a dark or light mode, both with translucent variants that will show the wallpaper behind it. So if you're not a fan of the absolute minimalistic stark white or stark black background, you can switch that. You can also switch search engines here for the springboard. You only have options for DuckDuckGo, Start Page, or Metager. And that's also here where you can restore colors to app icons and have the app drawer be the first thing you see when you unlock the phone. Now that springboard is sort of weirdly integrated because when you open an app, you can use the regular Android gestures from the bottom to close that app, but it does give a weird animation. It moves you back to the previous launcher page that you were on, and then it immediately swipes you back to the springboard, which is kind of jarring. It is not a bad launcher. I like the minimalistic approach. I really like the little shortcut things. It's nice, but it does feel sort of beta right now. You can't really change the news sources. You can't really add new search engines. It does like a few features here and there. And the animations, the voice controls for the springboard, they don't feel quite polished just yet. So it doesn't feel completely finished, but I do like the implementation of a phone that isn't meant to be used 8 hours per day. It's meant to be a tool, and this launcher makes you use your phone as a tool. You quickly do whatever you need to do instead of having a plethora of apps to choose from, which will suck you in and draw you into your phone. I think it's a nice way of doing things, but I don't feel like it's complete just yet. Now, an interesting feature in the launcher is also what they call security mode. It blocks specific applications from connecting to the internet, it blocks trackers and known malware URLs, and it even blocks opening certain apps when the mode is turned on. You can configure it in the general Android settings, not in the launcher settings for some reason. Now, in those security mode settings, you can, for example, enable micro G, you can disable the installation of new apps when secure mode is on, you can lock specific apps from being even opened, you also have the option to manage the entire phone's firewall to whitelist or blacklist specific domains, and you can enable a per app firewall as well to block internet connection to any app you want to disable. It's an interesting feature, basically sort of like parental controls without the screen time limits, but focused on privacy and security. You could basically configure it so it's always on and you only disable it when you actually want to install a new application or want to use an app that you don't quite trust but you still kind of need. Volla OS also comes with a VPN pre-installed, it's hides.me. I don't know how good it is, but it's not specifically integrated with the system, so you can replace it with whatever else you use already. Now, to install applications, Volla OS comes with both F-Droid and the Aurora Store. The first one only has open source apps, you probably know about it if you're interested in that topic, and the second one has all Google Play apps, or almost all of them. And it lets you download them by creating a fake Google account, so you don't have to have a real Google account, but it's a gray area legally. Do not log using your real Google account in there if you have one and you care about it, because you never know what Google might decide to do later down the line. They could decide that your account is now invalid and delete it, and that would suck. Installing apps is also a breeze. You just open the store, you click install, and it's done. I tried YouTube, and using micro G, I could even log into my account as easily as with any other Android app. Thus not respecting my own advice because I logged in with the channel's account, so if Google deletes the channel, you know where it comes from. I used it on micro G, and maybe that's not allowed. Now, important to know, but I won't show it here, my banking app also worked. This is not always the case on Degoogled Android ROMs that rely on micro G. Sometimes those apps refuse to work. Here, it worked fine. Well, both my banking apps, because I have one bank for my company running this channel and one bank for my own personal stuff, both worked fine. Your mileage may vary depending on your own application, but that's something at least. Now, anything that tries to download extra assets from the Google Play servers, though, will probably fail. Asphalt 8, for example, did let me play through the tutorial, but it failed to download the rest of the game from the Google servers. The API apparently doesn't exist in micro G. So if your favorite app needs to download extra stuff on top of the initial app install, you might be out of luck here. In general though, Aurora was great back when I used it on /EOS, and it's still great here. It just really works very, very well. Now, in terms of applications in Volla OS, the default selection is fine. You get the usual Android notification and quick settings system. Nothing has changed here with the launcher. You get the default Android settings, plus or minus a few entries that Volla OS either removed or added. The web browser you get is Fennec from F-Droid. It's a Firefox for Android fork. You get K9 Mail as the default email client. You get basic Android contacts, messages, and calendar, a simple image gallery, simple file manager, a clock, and a music and a radio application. It's not very important. You can replace all of these apps with anything else that you want and download it either from F-Droid or Aurora, so doesn't really matter. It's all bog standard AOSP stuff or apps installed from F-Droid. You also get Volla Messages, which is a secure, encrypted messaging app that is also open source. I couldn't find it on the Google Play Store though, even though they say it's supposed to work on any device, so I'm not sure how you're supposed to install it, maybe manually. I had no one to really try messaging with, so I didn't look into it too much, but it's the first part of what they call Volla Cloud. It won't be a cloud service where you have centralized servers and a company grabbing all your data. It is a distributed and encrypted network based on holochain. Now, I know if, like me, when you hear chain something, you think blockchain, you think scams and crypto and garbage, but that's not the case here. Holochain is another completely different way of doing things. It's distributed, it's not centralized, it's not synced globally with big servers, it is actually just synced per use case. So for example, if you have a group messaging, the only people getting that data synced to them is the people on the group message thread. If everyone deletes that message thread, it's gone and it's no longer synced anywhere else. Another example of that cloud is the recovery feature that lets you back up a bunch of settings in your Volla Phone or from your Volla Phone by syncing it to trusted peers that you add manually. These peers can be your own devices other than your phone, or they can be your friends and family's devices. You also get to allow or disallow these backups on your own device if you don't want your friends and family backing up on your own phone, and you can limit how much size they can take up if you allow that. I think it's a very interesting concept. As long as you have enough people around you that use something that you can back up to, then you're fine. You don't need a giant server. You don't need a company controlling everything you store. You don't even need your own servers. I think it's pretty cool. Although, personally, I would still back everything up onto something I fully control, because I just wouldn't really trust that whole mesh of other people's devices, even though it is encrypted, and as long as not everyone deletes all your stuff at the same time, you should be fine. They also theoretically cannot access anything that you back up to their phones because it is encrypted. So, is that thing any good? Phone and operating system? Well, my first impressions are that yes, it is a very nice phone and a very nice operating system. It does feel a bit beta quality in some areas, like some animations, some settings and elements in the springboard, like for example voice control not working very well. It is an interesting proposition though. The phone itself is very nice, very well built. It is really reminiscent of a Samsung phone, kind of the same quality, kind of the same built ethos and design. It doesn't feel cheap at all. It is too big for my taste though, way too tall compared to its width. It is still nice hardware, but it is also pretty pricey at 719 euros, taxes included. The OS itself is nice. The launcher I like. As someone who's been battling with a crippling device addiction, I've been trying to really not lose myself on my phone for too long. I disable most of the time sucks that tend to pull me onto that phone, but having a simple experience like this springboard really helps. You don't dive into many apps, you're not sucked into various app icons or short form content or whatever else. You just type into the phone what you want it to do and it does it, or you access one of the shortcuts that you made and you just do that. There is nothing incitating you to do anything else that you didn't come here to do, that you didn't turn your phone on to do specifically. The feature set though is a bit limited right now. It needs more options for the news sources or maybe removing the news panel entirely, and also for the web search engines, and a few fixes here and there for stuff that feels a bit haphazard when you're navigating. So for me, solid first impressions here. I really quite like what they built. I like the hardware, although I'm sure this is very likely like an off-the-shelf Chinese brand phone that they just rebranded. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't double check that, but it is a very, very good device. Now, as always, Volla is a relatively recent company. It's not brand new, they've been operating for multiple years by now, but it's still a relatively recent company based in Germany, so personally, I couldn't find anything weird about them. I really looked trying to find if they had some shady privacy-related stuff, if their owner was kind of unreputable or disreputable. I tried to find if they did or acted in a weird way. I couldn't find anything bad about the company. Most people who talk about it say, yeah, I bought one, it's fine, or yeah, I tried one, it was good enough. So I can't seem to find anything really bad, but it is a recent company, so you never know. And also, they could just run out of business. You don't know that as well. What I'll do is I'll swap my SIM card into this phone for a few weeks, see how much I like it, and if anything interesting happens during that time, I'll make a second video talking about my more long-term impressions, but first-term impressions, really solid enough. So I left a link to their website in the description. As always, this is not a sponsored video from Volla. They didn't pay me anything, so check them out if you want. I will not gain anything if you buy any of their phones. I personally do not care. Also, stay tuned for a second video where I'll showcase Ubuntu Touch running on that phone, because I won't talk about the phone specifically, we did that, but just showing how Ubuntu Touch works and how it is in 2025 is interesting, because the last time I looked at it, it was on a Pine phone and that device really sucked. Anyway, this will conclude today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you have any questions, the comment section is down there. I'll do my best to answer stuff about the phone if I can. And as always, you know where the YouTube buttons are, why you should click them. I won't bother you with that. Thank you all for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!